Krishna. Good evening. Welcome to evening Srimad Bhagavatam reading. My name is Shyamapriya Devidasi. I'm a disciple of His Holiness Bir Krishna Maharaj, and I'm happy to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10. We'll be continuing reading Chapter 11 tomorrow evening, same time. This is an incentive for our Vaishnavas and lovely Vaishnavis to do some Srimad Bhagavatam read and share the knowledge with everyone. So we ask that every evening 1:30 on and listen to the Srimad Bhagavatam from wonderful, delightful of Sri Radha Madhav in Sydney, Australia. So we'll start off singing Radha Madhav, and then Mangal Charan, and then the stories from this canto. So, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari, Yashoda Nandana Janaranjana, Yashoda Braja Janaranjana, Yashodandana Braja Janaranjana, Yamuna Tiranuchari, Yamuna Tiranuchari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari, Yanandana Brajaranjana, Yodanana Brajaranjana, Yamuna Tiranuchari, Yamuna Tiranuchari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe Jai Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Shri Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Jagannatha Jagannatha Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gaur Premanandi Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivracharya Asutra Satasri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Channa Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anant Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaur Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Gova Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Swami Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Samved Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the devotees, and all glories to the assembled devotees. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutle Srimate Bir Krishna Goswami Niti Namne. Namo Hamsa Nikashaya Prabhupada Priyayate Shuddha Shuddhi Nishthavayam Tasya Vakya Nuvadine. So, as mentioned earlier, welcome to this evening's Srimad Bhagavatam reading and a reading incentive by all the Vaishnav and Vaishnavis of the SISCON Sydney Yatra, Australia. So this evening I will be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1, Chapter 10, which is entitled Departure of Lord for Dwarika. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om 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 Namo Bhagavate Devaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Saprayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Naya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Okay, so read the first shloka and then basically we will be discussing the story rather than the purports. We will read the purports where it applies to the story. Generally speaking, in the story. So the first verse, Shaunaka Uvacha Hatva Swarikta Spradha Atata Yudhishthiro dharma vritam varishtah sahanujay pratyavaridruddha bhojana katham pavritam kim akar rashittatah. So, translation of that, Shaunaka Muni asked, after killing his enemies who desired to usurp his rightful inheritance, how did greatest of all religious men, Maharaj Yudhishthira, assisted by his brothers, rule his subjects? Surely he could freely enjoy his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness. So this question is, how did Yudhishthira Maharaj rule his kingdom? Now, this is following the great battle of Kurukshetra, which is recited in the Mahabharata. So the story goes that the story is Lord Krishna helps the five Pandavas win back their kingdom from Duryodhan and his 100 brothers. And it is being said that 600 million soldiers died in the battle of Kurukshetra. The killings on both of the party of, and so after all these killings, how did Yudhishthira Maharaj have in his heart to rule this kingdom with his brothers? So I'm going to sort of give you a little bit of background knowledge from this Mahabharata, which is taken off this Mahabharata. Just to give you an idea of what prompted Yudhishthira to how he actually ruled his kingdom. What was the driving force behind it? Where did the strategies come from? Maharaj was obviously very well trained by acharyas. He went to the best of schools and he learned how to actually manage the kingdom. He learned how to be a warrior. He had the best of weapons, and he had the best of friends, Lord Krishna himself, behind him. So he had all of that, but there was something else that he required after the battle. And what was it? So give you a little bit of background on it and how he was able to rule his kingdom. Obviously, this chapter we will be discussing is just chapter 10, and there is this chapter is all about after the aftermath of the Kurukshetra battle, and then how long Lord Krishna stays or resides with the five Pandavas, and then the departure. So the title of this canto is saying the departure of Lord Krishna to Dwarka. So we will discuss that along with this question, this first question that Shaunaka Rishi is asking: how did the greatest of religious men, Maharaj Yudhishthira, how did he assist his brothers? How did he fulfill the role of ruling his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness? So the story is, it goes through to the departure of Bhishma, the great grandfather. So he had, as we all know, that Bhishma, the great grandfather, he had the ability or the boon to leave his body at his own will. So these blessings was given to him by his father, obviously Shantanu, and because he was taking a lifelong oath of celibacy and renouncing the throne of being future king, because he was the rightful future king, so he was basically renouncing it. So his father, the boon, he said, you can die at will, so nobody can kill you, you can't die, you will leave your body at your own will. So Bhishma Pitama actually was a very pious soul in his previous life. He was one of the 8 Vasus, and Bhishma Pitama in that life he was known as Prabhash, and his wife actually desired the Kamadhenu, which is a wish-fulfilling cow of Vashishta Muni. And so in order to fulfill the wishes of his wife, he stole the cow of Vashishta Muni, assisted by the other 7 Vasus. So in the process of stealing that cow for his wife, the wish-fulfilling cow, he suffered a curse by Vashishta Muni. So he was cursed to live a suffering life on earth. Hence, he was born as Bhishma Pitama, Bhishma Dev. And now, in order to reduce the suffering, Ganga Devi decided to relieve them of this, and so she was able to deliver the other 7 Vasus, being their mother. She was the wife of Shantanu. Ganga Devi came as the wife of Shantanu. She was able to deliver the other 7 Vasus, but because Prabhash, the 8th Vasu, who had actually stolen the cow, he had done so, he couldn't be delivered yet. So he lived on. So in those days he was Devrat, and so it was a Bhishma Dev actually. Bhishma Pratigya, it was like means terrible oath. He had taken a celibacy, no kingdom, no throne. So actually a really bad oath, and he suffered quite a lot. So anyway, cutting a long story short, I'll go to the story where after the coronation. So anyway, he's lying in the bed of arrows, like shot by Arjun in the battle of Kurukshetra, and he's lying on those arrows that's through his body. It is said that there's not even a millimeter or very, very small breath between one arrow and the next on his body. Such was the number of arrows on his body that you could hardly find space between one arrow and the next. So, and as he fell on those arrows, and that was supporting his entire body. And Arjun provided the arrows for his head, so his head was resting on arrows, his entire body was, and he was lying like that, waiting for the right time to leave. And now we're coming to the point where Yudhishthir Maharaj gains that factor, that motivator to rule his kingdom. So we're coming to that. So Yudhishthir Maharaj is crowned. He's like crowned with the king's crown, so that's known as coronation. So now he's ready to rule. And what happens is after he has been crowned, Lord Krishna, Pandavas, they decide to rest because they've been scarred with arrows and all those things. So they have to go to the palaces that they have now to rest. And Bhim goes to Duryodhan's palace, which is very opulent, and it's full of male and female servants. Arjun goes to Dushashan's palace, which has a gateway made of solid gold. And Lord Krishna and his charioteer Satyaki also took rest in this palace with Arjun, because obviously Arjun and Lord Krishna are friends, so they're in the same palace. And Nukul and Sahadev, they entered the palace that was previously belonging to Drumka and Dhumashan. And so these palaces were very opulent, palaces of Kuber. So you can just imagine the riches that there were. Anyway, after resting the night, the next morning, Yudhishthir Maharaj visited the palace of Arjun and Lord Krishna, where Lord Krishna advised that Bhishma Deva was lying on the bed of arrows and about to pass away. So Lord Krishna is giving the instruction to Yudhishthir that it's time for Bhishma Deva to leave his body. You must go and visit him. So he says, as he's all thinking of me, and I of him, he advised that Bhishma Deva was very learned student of Parshuram and Vashishta Muni. So this is that I've been like leading up to, is that Bhishma Dev had the knowledge that from Parshuram and Vashishta Muni of how to rule and how to conduct oneself. And he was about to leave his body. So Lord Krishna said, visit him and gain knowledge from him. So of course he's a son of Ganga Devi also, and he's a eldest son of Brahma. So eldest son of Brahma, Sanat Kumar taught him. So these are his teachers. Sanat Kumar was one of Bhishma Dev's teachers. And Vashishta Muni taught him the 4 Vedas. And Brihaspati told him the Shastras and political science, as well as Shukracharya. So these are all his teachers. Imagine Shukracharya. Brihaspati is the guru of the demigod planets. Sanat Kumar is one of the 4 Kumaras. And he's also the eldest son of Lord Brahma. So Bhishma Dev was extremely learned. He had the knowledge of the 4 Vedas also from Vashishta Muni. So he was amazingly knowledgeable. And so Lord Krishna gave Yudhishthir Maharaj this point. Please now, because it's about his body. So the time was short and the sun was setting on his body. So these 5 Pandavas, they agreed and they mounted chariots and they did to visit Mahadev, where they were all great sages and rishis. They were waiting over there because they knew knowledge to be imparted. So this was this gathering. Obviously, Vyasadeva was there, Narad Muni was there, Asya, Jaimini, Maitreya, Vashishta, Sanat Kumar, Valmiki was there, Parshuram was there. So Parshuram, Vyasadeva, Krishna would also be present there. So these are like all, and Sukadev Goswami is there, obviously. But these are all incarnations of Vyasadeva, Parshuram. Lord Krishna is an incarnation of Lord Krishna. So you can imagine what kind of a situation scenario it would have been like. Three years Lord is present there before Bhishma Dev. So they were all seeking protection and knowledge. When the Pandavas arrived at the scene, they saw mountains of bodies, mountains and mountains of bodies from the battle, and they were on pyres, burning pyres, and bones of horses, and everything was there. And then they saw Bhishma was lying on the arrows. He was very effulgent. And Lord Krishna was stood at the feet of Bhishma Dev, and they offered their obeisances. And the Pandavas were sitting near by Bhishma Dev, who was overcome with grief, with dying. Maharaj congratulated them actually. Maharaj Bhishma Dev, he congratulated them on the victory. Tears of ecstasy was in his eyes, and he was overwhelmed with affection for the Pandavas. So he said, then he said, "O king, no one can know the plan of Sri Krishna, even the greatest philosophers, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva. Just accept him and surrender." So there he gives the first instruction, is surrender to Lord Krishna. And then he advised, since Yudhishthira Maharaj is the king now, responsible for those subjects, the subjects that he helpless. He killed a lot of people, and so they are quite helpless, and so he's responsible for them, and that was his duty, that you are responsible. So he starts to instruct Yudhishthira Maharaj right then, and Lord Krishna then. Upon seeing that Bhishma Dev was about to leave his body, he said, "Oh Bhishma, I hope your mind is not clouded. Your limbs are not in pain. Ordinarily, smallest pain would cause so much pain. What to speak of 100 arrows? Just now, Yudhishthira Maharaj is overwhelmed with lamentation with the death of his kinsmen. Of Varnas and 4 ashrams are well known to you. You are also connected with the 4 Vedas, 4 branches. No other man can destroy the doubts in the heart of Yudhishthira with the aids of your intelligence, driving away the doubts of the son of Pandu." So Lord Krishna is here telling them to drive away all the doubts, all the fear, all the lamentations, and only Bhishma can do. He's got the knowledge. He says, "Your devotion for me is for this reason I have appeared before you in the final moment." He said, "I never display myself to those who are not conquered, those who have not conquered their senses, those who are not devoted." He said, after his birth, he will never take birth again in the Vaikuntha planet. He will never come back to this world. He said, if he leaves, all his knowledge will be lost in this world. So if Bhishma Dev were to leave without this knowledge, it will be practically lost. So therefore, leaving this body, pacify the Pandu, who is lamenting the slaughter of all the kingsmen. So Bhishma replied, "Oh Lord, I am filled with joy, but what words can I in your presence? Everything comes from you. My mind is agitated with perils. Oh Govinda, I barely have the power to say anything. It's gone, life breath is exhausted. How can I speak?" So he refused. Actually refused. "Pardon me, I cannot understand whether it's day or night." That was the pain that Bhishma Dev was in. So he says, will Krishna not therefore speak to Yudhishthira himself? Then Lord Krishna grants him this benefit. He will not feel pain, hunger, thirst. That is and that his memory of the Vedic knowledge will not fail him. So Lord Krishna actually bestows this message, Bhishma Dev, that you will not feel any pain, no hunger. And so then whatever Yudhishthira is asked will be able to answer by his grace. So everybody was then, and Bhishma Dev, he passed the night peace in all his pain and intelligence. Pain was gone, intelligence was there. The next morning, Lord Krishna, has he passed the night well, and is all the intelligence there? And then he goes, yes. So then by Lord Krishna's guidance, he remembers everything. That's when he starts instructing Yudhishthira. And there he gives away all the doubt, all the pain, all the lamentation, and bestows on him the knowledge that Bhishma Dev got from those greatest of personalities. And so he was given basically update on duties of the king, the Brahmas, the Vedas, the austerities, worshipping deity, giving charity, the Kshatriya Dharma, how to protect citizens, and sacrifices, cow protection, charity to Shudras. These are just some of the things, not everything we can cover here today. Types of clothing, engaging Sudras in their duty, explaining the Varnashram system, activities for salvation, duties of women and devotees, occupational duty of difference, and many varieties of subjects and topics that he covered that would enable Yudhishthira Maharaj to rule his kingdom. So this is responding to the first shloka of this chapter 10. How did Yudhishthira Maharaj rule the kingdom? It was by the grace of Bhishma Dev Pitama, but obviously Lord Krishna's plan. So after that, Bhishma was speaking and prepared to leave his body. And he fixes his Sri Krishna, the form, glittering yellow dress and lotus face, with sandalwood pulp on his body. And with his wounds given to Lord Krishna, he fixed his mind on Sri Krishna in Parthasarathi form. That was Bhishma Dev's ish. That's how he Lord Krishna in the form of Parthasarathi. The battlefield, being the charioteer of Arjun, or Krishna who's lifted the chariot wheel and run Dev, breaking his vow that he will not lift any weapons, but he does for his beloved devotee Bhishma Dev. So thereafter he leaves his body and he goes to Vaikuntha planets, and he everybody becomes silent as Bhishma Dev stood, and Maharaj Yudhishthira performed the last funeral rites. From there, we come to this situation. Lord Krishna is about to leave. So I will quickly read some of the translations which will then answer the questions. So Sutta Goswami said, Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the maintainer of the world, became pleased after re-establishing Maharaj Yudhishthira in his own kingdom, after restoring Kuru dynasty, which had been exhausted by the Bemvenga. Then Maharaj Yudhishthira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishma Dev and Lord Krishna, he engaged himself in the matters of perfect knowledge, because all of his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth, the seas, and was his younger brothers. Then during the reign of Maharaj, the clouds, this is what happened when Maharaj Yudhishthira started ruling. So what happened? I mean, he's a pious king. We know that our earth right now is burdened with so many painful sufferings. The obvious one is Corona. But we've got cows suffering. We've got weather conditions are horrible. There's like fires everywhere. There's cyclones, tornadoes. You name it, it's happening. This earth is suffering so badly. There's like locusts. The bugs are eating away in Africa. In Fiji, I know there are termites. In Lotoka, where I am, this earth is suffering so badly. And one of the reasons is because we don't have any kings ruling over this planet right now. Pious kings means the prime minister, presidents of the countries. They're not pious. I'm going to read to you today how the earth was when someone like Maharaj was ruling. And listen, it sounds very nice. As opposed to somebody like our presidents and our prime ministers ruling our planet right now, what's happening with us and our planet, and what was happening back then. So during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthir, the clouds showered all the water that people needed. So there was no drought and famine. The clouds showered all the water, and the earth produced all necessities of men in profusion. In other words, the earth was yielding food like anything. And duty milk bag and cheerful attitude now used to moisten the grazing ground with milk. So cows were not killed, not suffering, not slaughtered. They were just like producing milk, and it used to moisten the ground. So the rains had helped ample production of grains and fruits. Grains and vegetables that was fed to everyone. There was enough milk, enough grains, enough fruit, enough cotton, enough silk, enough jewels. It was amazing. The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, active drugs in every season paid their tax quota to the king in profusion. So there was abundance of everything. Abundance. Because of the kings having no enemy, the living beings were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies. So there were no wars. Nobody was torturing the citizens. Nobody was stealing land or stealing people or, torturing people. There were no slaughterhouses. Right now, there's people smuggling. Children are being smuggled. Women are being smuggled. There's all things happening right now. It's Kali Yuga. So the living beings were not at any time disturbed, not at any time, by mental agonies, diseases. There were no diseases. Can you imagine? No diseases. Excessive heat or so then this is during the rule of a pious king. Sri Hari, Lord Krishna, is Hastinapur for a few months to pacify his relatives, to please his own sister. So Krishna was supposed to the battle goes to his own home in Dwarka, his own palaces. After Yudhishthir was enthroned, but to oblige the request of Maharaj Yudhishthir and to show special mercy to Bhishma Dev, Lord Krishna stopped at Hastinapur. Hastinapur was the capital of the Pandavas. The Lord decided to stay especially to pacify the aggrieved king as well as his Subhadra, sister of Krishna, because was especially was especially to be pacified because she lost her only son Abhimanyu, who had just married. So Abhimanyu was very young, and he just married to Uttara, and he was killed in the battle by trick, cheating in the chakra view, the chakra strategy, where he was slaughtered unfairly. So she was grieving. So she decided to stay a few months, 5 or 6 months, something like that. He stayed to pacify Subhadra specifically. So the boy had left his Uttara, who was the mother of Parikshit Maharaj. So she was pregnant with his. The Lord is always pleased to satisfy his devotees in any capacity. Only his devotees can play the part of his relatives. The Lord is absolute. So afterwards, when the Lord asked permission to depart, and the king gave it, the Lord respects to Maharaj Yudhishthir by bowing down at his feet, and the king embraced him. After this, the Lord, being embraced by the others, received their obeisances, got into his chariot. So this is a little bit of explanation of the relatives. I'll read out the purport in this case. Maharaj Yudhishthir was the elder cousin of Lord Krishna, and therefore, while departing from him, the Lord bowed down at king's feet. So we must remember that Lord Krishna is God. So it is actually our duty to fall at his feet. But here you can see that Lord Krishna is actually bowing and touching somebody's feet. And who is that somebody? That's Yudhishthir Maharaj. Yudhishthir Maharaj is older than Lord Krishna. So why does God do this? Because obviously he's there to set an example. Just because you are God doesn't mean you forget protocol, forget dharma. So, and he enjoys doing this. This is Lord Krishna's pastimes. He doesn't need to touch anyone's feet. He does. He pays the respects, which is sweet and very. I mean, it's very humbling, very humbling that God touches someone's feet. He does. So he bows feet, and then the king embraced him as a younger brother. That's another thing. If younger brother, it's your duty to embrace the younger brother and love them. So, but here, although he knew perfectly well that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, he knew that. So he was quite aware, but still, knowing that, he embraced Lord Krishna. He allowed him to touch his feet. It's hard to imagine. So it does happen though. So the Lord, when some of his devotees him as less important in terms of love. So it is said that Krishna, you can buy him with love. You can purchase him with love. If you love Krishna enough, you can get away with these kind of things, where you can allow Krishna to touch your feet. I mean, in the battle of Kurukshetra, when the story is that they were walking by the enemy on the other side's tent, the camp. The enemies, and Draupadi's shoes were making noise, walking. And so Lord Krishna bent down and took off her shoes and held her shoes while Draupadi walked silently, for her silently. So Lord Krishna, he held Draupadi's shoes. He's done that. So there is no limit to Lord Krishna's pastimes. Obviously, his love for his, and how he tolerates and how he serves his devotees. They love him so. So it's something for us, to aspire to. If you want to know what's in it for us, we should be able to love Krishna. We should pray that we love Krishna so much that he's able to reciprocate in such an intimate way. Something to aspire to. I don't know how many lifetimes it will take, but something to aspire to. So the purport goes, no one is greater than or equal to the Lord, but he takes pleasure in being treated as younger than his devotees. These are all transcendental pastimes of the Lord. The impersonalists cannot enter into supernatural roles played by the devotee of the Lord. That's another thing. If you are an impersonalist, you can never get there. So become a devotee and love Krishna. Thereafter, Bhim and Arjun embrace the Lord. So here's Bhim and Arjun, because they were of the same age. So if you want to know the age category, Bhim and Lord Krishna were of the same age, embraced. And then Nakul and Sahadev, they were younger than Krishna. So the Lord, so Nakul and Sahadev bowed down. So they did what Lord Krishna did with Yudhishthira Maharaj. Please excuse me, I'll just have a sip. Sorry. So then Sahadev bowed down before the Lord because they were younger than he. At that time, Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, Yuyutsu, Kripacharya, Nakula, Sahadev, Bhimasen, Domya, Satyavati nearly failed because it was possible for them to bear separation from Lord Krishna. So just imagine if Lord Krishna is with you and all of a sudden he's if you have someone who is very dear to you and you are told that the person who is so dear to you leave, how would you feel? So something like but you magnify it millions of times because it's a spiritual. It's Lord. So all of them were nearly fainting. All of them practically. They did not want Lord Krishna to leave. I mean, this was the state of the gopis of Vrindavan. They didn't want Lord Krishna to, and Lord Krishna did leave, and they were living in so much pain and suffering and separation that even Sukadev Goswami could not mention this part in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He didn't cover it because the pain of separation was so intense and unbearable that it was just could not be mentioned. So here we have all these personalities, greatest personalities, about to faint because it's impossible for them to bear the separation from Lord Krishna. And for devotees like us, it is hard to even understand. Probably the closest that we'd come to understanding is if someone who is very dear, whoever is dear to you in your life, is about to leave and die. So magnify that many times. We should bring ourselves to that level, that platform that we can understand. And that's where the chanting of the Hari Mahamantra comes in. Because the more we chant, the more we develop the love of Krishna. Because Radharani is saying Hare. So Radharani gives us the love for Krishna. I can feel the love and the separation. So, so I'll read a little bit of the purport because it's very important for us to know this. This particular point, because we should be able to cry for Krishna. I mean, we are devotees, we are struggling. We have this tendency to chant and to, obviously do all the things, but we want to know, we want to advance. We have this tendency to desire advancement so that we know Krishna. So I'll read a little bit. So Lord Krishna is so attractive for the living beings, especially for the devotees, that it is impossible for them to tolerate separation. The conditioned soul under the spell of illusory energy forgets God, otherwise he cannot. The feeling of separation cannot be described, but it is can be imagined by devotees only. His separation from Vrindavan, the innocent rural cowherd boys, girls, ladies and others, they all felt shock throughout their lives, and the separation of Radharani, the most beloved cowherd girl, is beyond expression. Once they met at Kurukshetra during solar eclipse, so they kind of went back to Kurukshetra, the Vrindavan residents, they went back to Kurukshetra during one of the solar eclipse. And the feeling which was expressed by them at that time was heart-rending. There's of course a difference in the qualities of transcendental devotees of the Lord, but none of them ever come into contact with the Lord by direct communion, otherwise him for a moment. That is the attitude of a pure devotee. You cannot. I mean, even if you stop chanting for a little while, you'll feel this pain. Oh, Krishna, I can't even chant. Or, there's lots of to the temple right now, and we feel separation from Gopinath. So if you magnify that, how the devotees would feel when Lord about to leave. So it is a very emotional moment. Intelligent who have understood the Supreme Lord in association with pure devotees have become freed from bad material association, can never avoid hearing the glories of, even though they have heard them only once. How then could the Pandavas tolerate his separation? They had been intimately associated with his person, seeing him face to face, touching him, conversing with him, and sleeping and sitting and dining with him. I mean, Arjun was so close with Krishna. He used to sit on his bed, the same bed. He would put his hand on his shoulders. They would eat from the same plate. They'd sleep on the same bed. So close. Yes. So it must have been very difficult for them. It is said that Hari, the personality of Godhead, is so transcendently attractive that even who are self-satisfied by self-realization and are liberated from all material bondage, become devotees of the Lord. Under the circumstances, it is easily understood that what must have been the position of the Pandavas, who were constant companions of the Lord. They could not even think of separation from Sri Krishna, since the attraction was more intense for them because of their continual contact. So if you happen to have a lot of personal contact with someone who is dear to you, who is Lord Krishna, obviously we're talking about, if you have constant contact, very difficult to separate. So his remembrance by his form, quality, name, fame, pastime, it is also attractive for the pure devotee. So much so that he forgets all forms, quality, name, fame, activities of the mundane world. Due to his mature association with pure devotees, he is not with the Lord for a moment. So all their hearts went for him on the spot of attraction. They looked at him without blinking their eyes. They looked at him without blinking their eyes. I blink my eyes millions. So, I mean, and they moved hither and thither in perpetuity. So they were confused what to do. Couldn't understand. And so the female relatives, this is a nice one also, which I'm going to read a little bit in depth. The female relatives, whose eyes were flooded with tears out of anxiety for Krishna, came out of the palace. They could not stop. They could stop their tears only with great difficulty. So the tears, I mean, if you can imagine tears coming out of your eyes, can you stop them? But they had these tears and with great difficulty for a special reason. They feared that the tears misfortune at the time of departure. So they did not want to be of any bad omen, bad sign or something bad happening because their tears fell down. So they checked their tears. They wouldn't cry. But they were women, they heart and lots of love Krishna and filled in their hearts. They were in anxiety and they were crying. So I'll read a little bit of the purport. There were hundreds of ladies in the palace of Hastinapur. All of them were so affectionate to Krishna. All of them were relatives too. When they saw Krishna was going away from the palace for his native place, they were very anxious for him. And as usual, tears began to roll down their cheeks. They thought at that time that tears at that moment might be a cause of misfortune for Krishna. Therefore, they wanted to check them. This was very difficult because tears cannot be checked. Or obviously, if you have tears running, you can't really hold them. Therefore, they smeared their tears in their eyes and their hearts throbbed. Therefore, ladies who were the wives and the daughters-in-laws of those who died in the battlefield never came in direct contact with Krishna. But all of them had heard of him and his great activities, and thus they thought of him and talked of him, his name, fame, etc., and became affectionate also, like those who were in direct contact. Therefore, directly or indirectly, anyone who thinks of Krishna, this is meant for us. Therefore, directly or indirectly, anyone who Krishna, talks of Krishna, or worships Krishna becomes attached to him. You want to know how to be attached to Krishna? You think of Krishna, you talk of Krishna, you worship Krishna. You will become attached to Krishna. Because it's absolute, there is no difference between his name, form, quality, etc. Our intimate relation with Krishna can be confidentially revived by our talking of or remembering him. It is done so due to spiritual potency. So while the Lord was departing from the Hastinapur, different sorts of drums like mridanga, dhola, nagara, dunduri, dunduvi, and flutes of different types, the veena, gomukha, and bass sounded together to show him honor. Out of a loving desire to see the Lord, the royal ladies of the Kurus on top of the palace and smiling with affection and shyness, they showered upon the Lord. So a particular extra natural beauty of the fair sex, it commands respect from the opposite sex. I was reading from one of Tamal Krishna Maharaj's classes, and he said that he had related the story of the sweeper, a sweeping woman, a woman who sweeps. She displayed so much shyness that men of high caliber on that office, I mean, maybe the CEOs or the directors, somebody, they stepped aside and let her sweep out of respect. They gave way because of this. So that such is the command of a woman's shyness. It's a natural beauty of sex. The custom was observed even during the days of Mahabharata, that is more than 5 years ago. So it is definitely stated here that ladies were smiling. They are the palace, checked by shyness. This shyness is a gift of nature to the fair sex, and it enhances their beauty and prestige, even if they are of less important family, or even if they are less attractive. We have practical experience of this fact, and Prabhupada mentions here, a sweet commanded respect of respectable gentlemen simply by manifesting a lady's shyness. Half-naked ladies in the street do not command any respect, but a shy sweeper's wife commands respect from all. So there you go, a little bit of guidance on dressing. Never be half-naked. So we'll continue from there to the next. At that time, Arjun, the great warrior and conqueror of sleep, who is the intimate friend of the most beloved Supreme Lord, took up an umbrella, which had a handle of jewels and was embroidered with lace and pearls. So in those old pearls and valuable stones were used in luxurious royal ceremonies in those days. So that. And then Uddhava and Satyaki began to fan the Lord with decorated fans. And the Lord, as the master of Madhu, seated on scattered flowers, commanded them along the road. So imagine, Krishna was living with great pomp and luxury, and it must have been a wonderful scene. It was being heard here and there that the benedictions being paid to Krishna were neither befitting nor unbefitting, because they were all for the Absolute, who was now playing the part of a human being. So Krishna was behaving just like a human being. Okay, so continuing from there. Absorbed in the thought of the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is glorified in select poetry, the ladies on the roofs of houses of Hastinapur began to talk of him. This talk was more attractive than the Vedas. So again, we are being pointed out very obviously, very pointedly, very clearly, that those who talk of Krishna with love is far better than those who religiously chant from the Vedas. There's a difference. So these ladies who were on the rooftops, who were full of shyness, they were talking about Lord Krishna with their hearts, with the love of Krishna. And described here that it was more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. That is why I always pray personally that I always come in a female form, with the heart of a female, because we are naturally built to love, ladies. And the reason I say that I want to always be female, because I would then be able to love Krishna. Obviously, that doesn't mean that being male you cannot. There's no competition. Being of a female heart and female emotions, you are able to do that very easily and to a lot of depth. So, so it says here in the book, he said that in all the Vedic literatures, the goal of is the Godhead, Sri Krishna. The glories of the Lord are depicted in such literatures as the Vedas, Ramayana, and Mahabharata, and in the Bhagavatam. They are specifically mentioned in respect to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, ladies on the rooftops of the houses in the capital of kings of the Kuru dynasty were talking about the Lord. Their talk was more pleasing than the Vedic hymns. So talk of God is more. Anything sung in the praise of is Shruti mantra. The songs of Thakur Narottam Das, one of the acharyas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, composed in simple Bengali language. But Thakur Vishwanath Chakravarti, another very learned acharya of the same Sampradaya, has approved the songs by Thakur Das to be as good as Vedic mantras, which is true. We sing Narottam Das Thakur's prayers up till today. We always do. And they're very, very beautiful. They're gorgeous. The meanings are fantastically up spiritually. They're better than the Vedic hymns. Because it comes from a devotee's love, pure love from the heart. So, so this is so because the subject matter is immaterial, but the subject matter is important. The ladies who were all absorbed in the thought and actions of developed consciousnness of the Vedic with the grace of the Lord. And therefore, although such ladies might not have been very learned, they're not learned in the scholars in Sanskrit or otherwise, still whatever book was more attractive than the Vedic hymns. The Vedic hymns in the Upanishads are sometimes indirectly or directly to the Supreme Lord, but the talks of the ladies were directly spoken of the Lord. And thus they were more pleasing to the heart. The ladies appeared to be more valuable than the learned Brahma's renditions. How nice if we could hear them. So they said, here is the original personality of Godhead as we definitely remember him. He alone existed before the manifested creations of the modes of nature, and in him only, because he is the Supreme Lord, all living beings as if sleeping at night is suspended. The personality of Godhead, again desiring to give names and forms to his parts and parcels, the living place their guidance of material nature. By his own potency, material nature is empowered to recreate. Here is the Supreme Godhead whose transform is experienced by these who are completely cleansed of material consciousness by devotional service and full of control of life and the senses, and that is the only way to purify existence. Oh dear friends, here is that very personality of Godhead whose attractive and confidential pastimes are described in the confidential parts of Vedic literature by his great devotees. It is he only creates, maintains, and highlights the material world and yet remains unaffected. So they are administrators living like animals in the lowest modes of sense. The Lord transforms, manifests his supreme power. The truth positive shows special mercy to the faithful, performs wonderful activities, and manifests various transcendental forms as is necessary in different periods. Oh, how supremely glorified is the dynasty of the king Yadu, and how virtuous is the land of Mathura, where the supreme leader of all living beings, the husband of the goddess of fortune, has taken his birth and wondered childhood. Undoubtedly wonderful that Dwarka has defeated the glories of the heavenly planets and hence the celebrity of the earth. The inhabitants of Dwarka are always seeing the soul of all living beings, Krishna, in his loving feature. He glances at them and favors the smiles. Oh, just think of his whose hands he has accepted, how they must have undergone baths, fire sacrifices, and perfect worship of the Lord of the universe to constantly relish now the nectar from his lips by kissing. The damsels of Rajbhumi would often faint just by expecting such favors. The children of these ladies are Praduman, Samba, Amba, etc. Ladies like Rukmini, Satyabhama, and Jambavati were forcibly taken away by him. That's romantic? I'm not sure. Yes. Forcibly taken away by him from their Swambar ceremonies after he defeated many powerful kings headed by Shishapa. And other ladies were forcibly taken away by him after he killed Bhaumasura and thousands of his assistants. All of these ladies are glorious. Yes, they are. All these women are glorified their lives despite their being without individuality and without purity. Their husband, the lotus-eyed personality of Godhead, never left alone at home. He always pleased us by making valuable patients. Nice. While the ladies of capital of Hastinapur were greeting him and talking in this way, the smiling accepted their good greetings and casting his grace of his glance over them, he departed from the city. So while they were talking, The Lord must have heard, obviously. And he smiled and looked all over at everyone with his glance and departed. And what did Maharaj Yudhishthira do? Although Yudhishthira, although no one's enemy, engaged 4 divisions of defenses: by horse, by elephants, by chariot, by army. Divisions, and they accompanied the Lord Krishna, the enemy of Asurs or demons. The Maharaj did this because of the enemy and also out of love and affection for the Lord. So Krishna had enemies, Asurs and demons. So for him, he made sure that he was accompanied. Although Krishna is he is able to defend himself, the army obviously is God. So out of profound affection, he did that for Lord Krishna. Out of profound affection for Lord Krishna, the Pandavas, who were of dynasty, accompanied him a considerable distance to see him off. So they actually accompanied, they wouldn't let him go either. They accompanied him for a long time, a long way, until Lord Krishna him to please go. So they were overwhelmed with the thought of separation. The Lord, however, came to return home, and he proceeded to Dwarka with his dear companions. Shaunaka, the Lord, then proceeded towards Kuru jungle, Panchala, Surusena, the land on the bank of river Yamuna, Brahmavarta, Kurukshetra, Matsya, Saraswata, the province of the desert, and the land of water. After crossing these provinces, he gradually reached Sauvira and Abhira provinces, and then west reached Dwarka at last. So he went to a lot of locations. He passed locations before he reached Dwarka. The provinces passed over by Lord in those days were differently named. Direction given is sufficient to indicate that he traveled. So if you want to know how he traveled or where he traveled through Delhi, Punjab, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Saurashtra, and Gujarat. And at last, he reached the home province of Dwarka. So we do not gain any profit by simply researching the analogues of provinces of those days up to now, but it appears that the desert of Rajasthan and the provinces of scanty water like Madhya Pradesh were present even 5,000 years ago. The theory of soil experts say that the desert developed in recent years is not supported by the statements of the Bible. We may leave the metaphor now. We are satisfied that Lord has now reached his own province, Dwarka Dham. From the Kuru provinces, Kurukshetra continues to exist since the Vedic age, and it is sheer foolishness when interpreters ignore or deny their existence. So Kurukshetra is still there, as we can see. We've seen many pictures. It's still there. So on his journey through these provinces, he was well worshipped and given various presentations in all places. The Lord suspended his journey to perform evening rites. This was the regularly observed after sunset. So he observed everything. And so this will now a little bit about the purport. About what was regularly observed, what he regularly observed after sunset. So it is said here that the Lord observed the religious principles regularly while he was on his journey. He didn't really leave his principles or whatever his routine was in observing religious regulations and things like that. There are certain philosophical speculations that even Lord is under the obligations of fruitive action. But this is not the case. He depends on the action, good or bad work, since the Lord is absolute and everything done by him is good for everyone. But when he descends on earth, he acts for the protection of his devotees and for the annihilation of the impious non-devotees. So although he has no obligatory duty, still he does everything so that the others may follow. So he's setting an example. And that is the way of factual teaching. One must act properly. Always act properly. Why? One must act properly himself to teach the same to us. actually Bharat loves to say that teach by example. Teach by example. So you have to be that person in order to teach other people how to be. So lead by example. That's the best leader of all. One who leads by example. So that is the way of factual teaching. One must act properly himself and time to the others. That is what Krishna was doing. Lord Krishna was doing. He was observing all the rituals, so he may teach the other grihasthas. Otherwise, no one will accept one's blind teaching. He is himself the awarder of else. He is self-sufficient, and yet he acts according to the rings of the revealed scripture in order to teach us the process. If he does not do so, the common man may go wrong. But in the advanced stage, when one can understand the transcendental nature of the Lord, one does not try to imitate him. It's possible. Try to be like Lord Krishna. In other words, leave the rasa to Krishna, not yourself. The Lord in human society does what is the duty of everyone. But sometimes he does something extraordinary not to be imitated by the living being. In other words, you will never be able to lift something like the Govardhan hill. Only the Lord can do that. So his acts of evening prayer, so that's what he was doing in the evenings, he was praying. His acts of evening prayer, as stated herein, must be followed by the living being, but it is not possible his mountain lifting or dancing with the gopis. It's not possible. One cannot imitate the sun. You can't be the sun. Fact. So you can't be Krishna. One cannot imitate the sun, which can exhaust water even from a filthy place. The most powerful can do something which is all good, but our imitation of such acts is into endless difficulty. Therefore, in all actions, the experienced guide, the spiritual master, who is the manifested mercy of the Lord, should always be consulted. In other words, if you are about to do something, consult Gurudev, your spiritual master. If you don't have a guru, consult a senior devotee, our temple. If you are seeking guidance, read the Bhagavad Gita. It will guide you. It will surely guide you on your decision. So, therefore, in all actions, the experienced guide, that spiritual master who is the manifested mercy of the Lord, should be consulted. And the path of progress will be assured. The path of progress will be assured. So, this ends the 10th chapter of first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka. So tomorrow evening we will discuss about when Lord Krishna enters into, which is a very nice reading also. I mean, Lord Krishna's are beautiful, and they fill our hearts with so much love and affection. Krishna, we are filled with awe also and interest, how he could achieve this, achieve that. So we might be able to discuss a little his family life. I might have some stories from the Krishna. I might add as a add-on to see how he lives his life as a grihastha in Dwarka, and what happens when he gets there. Tune in tomorrow at the same time, same place, same station. And thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the narration. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Danvat Pranam. All the Vaishnava and Vaishnavis. Hare Krishna.